Most people don't fail at writing a book because they can't write. Most people fail to finish their manuscript because they don't have a complete plan on how to get from the beginning to the end. I work with thought leaders and busy professionals who have the ideas, but they need help getting the ideas out of their head into a completed manuscript. So today, I'm going to give you a simple 5-step plan to take your manuscript from someday to a date on the calendar and get it published. So listen up. Step one, you have to start with purpose. There's so many authors that aren't asking this question first, which is, why am I writing this book? And it sounds really simple, but I'm going to tell you what a lot of people do. So they'll go online, or they'll go in self-publishing forums, and they'll ask questions like, do I need an ISBN? What kind of cover should I get? How much should I spend on an editor? All of these things really depend on why you're doing it. I've seen so many people waste so much time and so much money and put so much effort into the wrong places because they are not clear on what their purpose is yet. If you're trying to publish a book, there are plenty of ways to get there, but how you get there really depends on why and your purpose for getting there. So the analogy I like to give is, if someone says to you, where should I stay when I go to Miami? Well, what's the first question that you're going to ask is, what are you doing in Miami? So that's going to look really different if you're going for business, or if you're going for a family vacation versus a girls trip versus a vacation. All of those things are going to determine where you stay, what type of transportation you use when you get there, the things that you do when you're there. All of those things come from your purpose first. You're probably not going to book the booze party cruise if you're going with your 4 kids, but that's what a lot of people are doing in publishing. They're just making decisions based off of very generic advice without getting really clear on their purpose for doing it first. So my suggestion is, before you even put pen to paper, I want you to start off with your why, and I want you to get really specific about it. And the first question to ask yourself is, what is publishing this book doing for you? And be completely honest here. Do you just want a bunch of money? Do you want more leads for your business? Do you want to be a New York Times bestseller? Do you want just to see your name in print? Be really honest. What is your reason for doing what it is that you are going to do? Meaning, i.e., publishing a book. Understand what role it's playing in your life, because if you don't get clear on that, once it gets boring or hard, or all the things that come with the writing process, you're a lot more likely to give up. The second question that I want you to ask yourself is, what is writing this book doing for my reader? What is it that you want your reader, when they get finished and they get to the end, to take away? How has this book been transformational in their lives? It doesn't even have to be a huge transformation. Maybe they were bored before, but now they're entertained. But there's some type of takeaway that you want your reader to get from your book once they're finished reading it. What is the transformation that you've given the reader, so that they'll close your book and want to go tell somebody else right away? Because that's what you want to create. You want to create a book that makes somebody want to go tell somebody else, hey, you are going to want to read this. The thing is that if you don't get clear on your purpose, you will stall. I always say, and I get pushed back on this, I don't care, writer's block is a myth. A lot of what we're calling writer's block is just a lack of clarity. Get clear on where you're going, because if you're not clear on where you're going, you're not going to be able to figure out how to get there. Okay, step two, you're going to get clear on your audience. You have to know who you are speaking to really be able to speak to them and speak to them in their language. Now, I work with a lot of authors, and one of the first things that a lot of my authors say when we work together is, when I say, who is your audience? Their first answer is, everybody. I want everybody to be able to read this book and take something away from it. No, everybody is not your audience. Now, everybody might be able to pick it up and take something away from it, but what you want to get to is, who is more likely to do that? Who is the person that needs the transformation or the information that your book is going to offer? So, as an example, probably everybody could gain something from a cookbook that promises you 30-minute healthy meals, how to, cook healthy dinners fast. Everybody could read that and take something away from it. But who is most likely to do that? It's most likely going to be somebody who's health conscious and short on time. The person who doesn't like to cook at all and is storing sweaters in their oven probably isn't going to be looking for a cookbook, period. The person who loves cooking gourmet meals every night and has the time to do that is probably not looking for 30-minute meals. So you already can narrow down who it is that you are specifically speaking to, just thinking about who is most likely to pick this up. Your audience is not everyone. So when you think of your specific audience, what is it that this person is struggling with right now? And what is it that your book can give them that will get them from where they are now to where they want to be? Again, does not have to be huge, life changing information. It could just be, before I felt alone and now I feel community because there's somebody else that's gone through what I've gone through. Or, I was never able to organize my closet and now I've read this and now I have more time in my day because I can find the things I'm looking for. But you want to be able to know your reader enough to know their challenge and to know what your role is in helping them address it. And one thing I say is that if you can just really get to the point where you can think of a person, like put a person in the place of your reader and think, if this person was sitting right in front of me and I was talking to them about this challenge and how to solve it, how would I talk to them? You can even name them if you feel like going that far. But what are the things that I would say to them if we were just sitting down in casual conversation? And doing this really helps you to be able to get your voice and your tone, and again, help you work through some of those blocks that a lot of writers face in trying to write their books. And when you really think about who is the audience, who am I speaking to through this book? Step 3, create your outline. So now you have your purpose, you have your audience. And so now you need to build the structure of your book. So the way that you're going to start outlining is by brainstorming. So now we're thinking about our audience member, right? And they've come to us and they said, hey, how would I write a book this year if I wanted to write a book this year? Think about the question that your audience asks you the most and how you would answer that question for them. If you were giving a workshop to this audience, what are the topics that would be included in that workshop? What are the things that you would talk about, the broad topics, the specific topics, and just start brainstorming around that. What are the things that you would say to someone who had questions around this issue? What are the main struggles that people have around what you're talking about? And once you start bringing these things into your mind, start also thinking about the places that you already have content around this. Because if you are an expert, if you're a thought leader, chances are this is not the first time that you have talked about this in some way. You likely have social media posts, maybe videos, podcasts, even emails, presentations. Just start thinking about what are the things that I've already created that I can begin to pull from in this process. You don't have to start from scratch unnecessarily. Give yourself a little bit of a leg up by pulling on what you've already done. And then as you start to do this, patterns will naturally start to emerge and you'll naturally start to be able to group the content that you have and the content that you're thinking about in different buckets that will become your chapters. One thing I will say is that if you're using an AI tool to assist you in your writing, I am not big on using AI to actually write your words. And I'll make another video about that later. But I do think that AI can have a very helpful place in the writing process. And one of them really is organizing information. AI tools, ChatGPT, Claude, are really good at being able to bring information together that you're thinking about and that you're brainstorming about. So this is a good place to be able to take these buckets of information, put them in an AI tool, and ask for it to help you come up with an outline or a way to group together these different buckets of information that you're coming up with as you're doing this brainstorming process. So here's my quick and dirty outline guide. Once you get to the point that you have these patterns of information and these groupings and you're ready to really move into creating an outline. So part 1, what is the main takeaway from each chapter? And you want to go through each chapter or bucket that you come up with and come up with a 1-sentence takeaway so that if the reader were in a class and they had to tell the teacher, what was this chapter about? They could in 1 sentence say, this is what this chapter was about. If you can't get to 1 sentence, then it's probably not as clear as you want it to be. So you're just going to start with 1-sentence takeaway. Chapter 1, 1 sentence. Chapter 2, 1 sentence. Then you're going to come up with your supports for those key takeaways. So just come up with 2 to 3 examples. You may end up having more, likely will end up having more as you go through the actual drafting process. But 2 to 3 examples that support what you're talking about. So these could either be like outside examples, testimonials, people that have used whatever this method. These could also just be your supporting information for what the key takeaway of the chapter is. But you're going to want to come up with supporting information that leads to supporting the key takeaway of the chapter. And then once you have those examples, you want to do two things. So you want to see, how do these examples tie back into my main point? Because you want to make sure that everything in your book is driving to a point, so that you're not just rambling, but that you are making the point that you want to make. So how do these examples drive back to the point, the key takeaway of my chapter? How do they support that? And then how does every chapter support the main point of the book? One of the biggest issues that I see with a lot of aspiring authors is that they have so much content and so much information. I rarely run across people, because I am working with thought leaders and experts, who don't have enough information. The bigger challenge is, how do I take this abundance of experience and all of these things that I've learned over decades, a lot of times in this field, and really hone them into something that's readable and makes sense? So a lot of times it is getting really sharp on that. How do these examples support the chapter? How does each chapter support my main purpose for this book? So once you have the structure, you can write faster. I've ghostwritten for authors for over a decade. I've written 10 of my own books. And being able to have that structure, even if it's just a loose structure, helps you to be able to write, because again, you know where you're going and you have that framework in place. Step 4, do the math. Do the math. And this is the place where you're really going to focus to be able to get the work done, because a lot of people get through the brainstorming phase of the book, and then when it comes to the action phase, they conk out, they don't do it. So what we're going to do is do the math to get you to your deadline, to get your book done this year. So what I want you to do first is I want you to set an urgent deadline within the year and tie it to something important. And what I mean by that is, look at the topic of your book. So as an example, I'm going to say that the topic of your book is about women's empowerment. Women's History Month is in March. So right now, as I'm talking, I'm in April. So by next March, Women's History Month, because that's going to be really important, it ties into the topic of my book, I am going to have my book published. So pick a future date. Don't make it too much further than a year out, but also don't make it too much shorter than a year out. You want something that's right around that year mark to be able to put some fire under you and some urgency for your book. So after you do that, I want you to work backwards from your deadline. And in working backwards from your deadline, I want you to give yourself 6 months. Your first draft of the book is finished, to get to the publishing of your book. Now, some of you may be saying that's a lot of time. Some people may be saying that's not enough time. What I'm saying is that that is a good amount of time, because you're going to write your book, but there is so much that needs to go on in the post-writing process. First of all, first draft, a lot of times you're going to look at it and kind of be like, it needs a lot more work. It's always going to need that. But you also have editing, you have beta readers, you have marketing, you have cover design, you have formatting. There's a lot that goes into the process after you publish a book. I have a self-publisher's timeline and guide listed in the description box that you can take a look at, so that you can just get an overview of all of the things that need to happen after you finish writing. Writing is far from the end point. So my suggestion, especially as a first-time author, give yourself 6 months after finishing your draft to get to the publishing stage. You can do it faster, but give yourself that buffer. So now we're 6 months back. So now I want you to aim for 3 to 4 months, no more than 4 months, to write your first draft. So the way you're going to figure out how much you need to write to get to that first draft is, you're going to look at the genre of book that you have. Now, I work mostly with authors that are writing thought leadership, self-help books. The range for a self-help book is usually around 60,000 words. You might be writing a different type of book. Memoir tends to be longer. Novels tend to be even longer than that. So adjust this for whatever you're working on. I'm going to work with 60,000 words. So 60,000 words, we're going to go to 4 months. So 4 months, 60,000 words, that means we need to write 15,000 words a month. 15,000 words a month, 3,750 words a week, 535 words a day. So that's about 2 pages a day. The average Microsoft Word page is about 250 words roughly. When you break it down like that, it does not feel super overwhelming, right? Like you could sit down and say, I'm going to write 2 Microsoft Word pages every day. Or if your days vary and some days you're super busy and you don't have the time, but maybe Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, you have some blocks of time. So you're saying 2 pages a day, 14 pages a week. So 3 days a week, sit down and write 4 pages, 4 or 5 pages of a book. That's possible, right? Doesn't that feel a lot more possible than I need to finish a book? So, this is the way that I work with clients to really break it down in pieces that feel manageable to help you get where you're going within the time that you want to get there. Now, the other thing that I want to say is that you can do this faster. And the best way to do this faster is just write it out. When you get to that, this is the number of what I have to do every day. Don't edit yourself. Don't try to make it perfect. Just try to make it there. One thing that I do suggest is talking it out. If you don't have time sometimes to sit down and write, open your notes app, open a recording app, and just talk it out. And then you at least have the content to edit when you do have the time to sit down. 2 pages a day. You don't need more time. You just need a realistic plan to get it done. So, real quick, if you're serious about this and serious about getting your book finished this year, look in the comments, download the book completion plan. The book completion plan will help you come up with your work plan to get your book finished in the amount of time that you want to get it finished, and also commit to the process of writing your book. So, we're at the last step, step 5. So, the last step is commit out loud. Commit out loud. You set your deadline. So now what you're going to do is tell somebody else. Now, if you're feeling really brave and really confident, then go ahead and post it. Send it to your email list. Be really loud about it. I'm working on a book. Plans are for this book to be out in March of next year. If you're not quite there yet, tell somebody else, your friend who stays on you to do the things that you're supposed to do, your partner if you have a really supportive one, your therapist, your business coach. Tell somebody else, this is what I am going to do by this deadline, and make it real. Until it comes out of your mouth and into the world, a lot of times it's just an idea until it's shared with somebody else, and then it becomes a commitment. So we're going to commit out loud to getting our books done this year. So those are your 5 steps. What I want you to do now is make it real by dropping your deadline in the comments. Let me know that you're doing it. You don't have to tell everybody else in the world, but let me know that you are making your book real. And happy writing to you.